Salut tout le monde, c'est tintinbulleraysann. Aujourd'hui on se retrouve pour du Stanley Parable. Stanley Parable. Logiquement j'ai changé les... Et les tokai. Yes. Yes. Ok. Et j'appuie pour... Oh, t'es là? Oui, t'es là, mais de très loin. Et je commence. Oh, l'eau à dingue. Il y a un lot à dingue. L'eau à dingue. Oui. Je t'entends de très loin. Mais bon, c'est pas grave. The end is never. The end is never. The end is loading. Ah putain. Moi t'en foutu micro, franchement. Ça m'a tout fait des points, quoi. Ouais. Ouais. Oh, je suis sur Mumble. Ça fonctionne aussi. Blabla. Loading. Ah, ça avance. Petit à petit.
Tu fais des fenêtres réception?
Peux-tu répéter un peu plus fort? Ah, parce que j'ai rien entendu. Les...
Des fenêtres réception, c'est ça?
Ouais. Pa, pa, pa. Ah non. Click to
This
Skype.
is the story of a
What?
man named Stanley.
Skype. Skip. Skip. Je suis à skip. Wouah. 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 Oula. Oula, sensibilité. Oh putain, oui, c'est vrai, j'avais mis la sensibilité à pratiquement rien. Alors, contrôle. Doc. Bon, bah, ça va être doc. Voilà. 427. J'ai un taille crayon. Je joue à James Bond. J'ai tout faux, c'est pas ce Stanley Parable, c'est James Bond. Les portes, les fenêtres. Y'a pas de collègues. Essayons d'ouvrir la porte. Non, j'arrive pas. Oula. C'est quoi les touches? K. Action. K. Ah mince, c'est ça. Use. Oui, bonjour.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go anywhere except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just...
Attends, pour rien comprendre. Non, y a même pas. Oh. Peux-tu me dire ce qu'il est en train de dire parce que je ne comprends rien? Et tu l'as? Non, il est pas là,
En
pardon.
gros, il te dit d'attendre. Enfin, oui, je suis là.
Oui.
Donc en gros, il te... Comment dire? Il a attendu des années entières et puis bah d'un coup... Enfin, je sais pas, mais... Enfin, t'as passé le tout début.
Ouah.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle
Non,
the
c'est bon, c'est
pressure.
bon.
What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No.
Bon,
This
j'ai refait
couldn't go
pareil.
anywhere except badly. The thing
Il
to
faut
do
pas
now,
fermer sa
Stanley thought
porte.
to himself, is
Ok.
to wait. Nothing will hurt me.
C'est mal de
Nothing will
fermer la
break
porte.
me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer.
Non, mais c'est bon, je sais que je suis une merde. Voilà. Loi dingue. On ne ferme pas la porte. Tu fermes la porte quand tu es sorti.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
Oh non.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Left. C'est gauche.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Il n'y a même pas mon ombre. C'est quoi ce jeu? C'est bon. Ça s'ouvre et ça se ferme.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Alors, contraste parfait. Blanc sur marron, rouge, ouais. Bonjour monsieur le
Stepping
boss.
into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
2, 8, 4, 5.
Stanley simply began entering random codes into the keypad, knowing full well the sheer statistical unlikelihood that this would ever result in a correct combination. If he knew that the combo was 2, 8, 4, 5, it would be another story entirely. But no, this is what he was going to do instead.
Je suis nul. Oui, c'est bien.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Trop noir là-bas. On descend. Descend. Ah là là. Loi dingue. J'ai pas du tout sûr qu'on va le finir aujourd'hui, mais si on le finit aujourd'hui, ce serait marrant. Enfin, si on commence depuis 0, je crois que je vais reprendre dans une autre vidéo. Parce que oui, on est en vidéo. On est toujours en vidéo. Je suis en vidéo et en
Descending
live.
deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Faudrait qu'ils appellent des électriciens.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape, contrôle. Ah! Faut que j'appelle 914. Y'aurait pas un téléphone? Yeah!
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Waouh. Caméra.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place
En fait,
where
c'est trouver,
freedom meant nothing.
En fait, j'ai compris, c'est trouver l'intrus. Trouver l'intrus parmi tout le monde. Ah d'accord, là. Là c'est explicite. En fait, il est où déjà?
This mind control
Oh, il était
facility,
viré
it
le
was too
600.
horrible to believe it couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Un écran géant, j'aimerais bien voir ça. Oh Je crois qu'il fallait appuyer sur on. Oups. Allô?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin.
Attendez. Attendez, parce que là, je vais regarder quand même les trucs qui se passent dans le chat. Parce que j'ai même pas démarré le chat. Enfin, je n'ai pas démarré le chat pour moi. Détaché. Voilà. Est-ce que ça parle?
The feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Ouais, je suis happy, j'ai gagné. Bon bah c'est bon, vous pouvez partir. Non, je sais pas. Il faut que j'obtienne la... Ah oui, ça, je suis en... Ah, je suis en 427, ok. Oui, c'est ça.
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in?
M'en
How
fous.
is that possible? They never stopped. Surely I was mistaken. When Stanley came to a set of two open... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had... But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the
Le type,
first open door
il
on
fait
his
n'importe
left.
quoi. C'est bon.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ah, on peut jump.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Non, j'aime pas les embrassants. Allons-y, hein. Allez, suicidons-nous.
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do,
Stop. J'ai envie de voir le chat. Comment chuter?
Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Plusieurs fins. Ah, intéressant. Bon, là j'ai fait la fin du suicide. peut le débrancher ce téléphone de merde. Ah non.
But Stanley simply couldn't.
Non. Il y a 9000 fins, putain. Téléphone. Je m'en fous, j'y vais.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Left.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without having experienced this room was now too horrible even to consider. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Minecraft.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine.
Ah bon, il est normal, putain.
I am okay.
C'est bon?
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Black. Oui, c'est black.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
La quatrième, je me suis suicidé. La cinquième, j'ai tourné en rond. Les deux premières, je me suis enfermé sans faire exprès dans mon bureau. Oui, oui, pourquoi pas. Je pose pas de questions, voilà, c'est bon. Fini. Fini. Bon. Je redémarre le live juste pour que ça, c'est plus, mais pas le reste. Pause, même.